You may have noticed in the news recently there's been some changes in the cabinet.
Great, brilliant. I have strong views on this as well. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say if property is no longer your aspiration and you want to get into politics and you end up in that cabinet, what one single change would you bring to government to help assist with the housing crisis?
Okay, right. So what single change? Well, I think as we're touching on the cabinet and the reshuffle, I think property is a huge part of the economy. I think the property market has stalled in the last couple of years. A large part of that is due to the uncertainty around Brexit, not the reality of lower GDP or less sort of exports, or it's really just the perception and the lack of confidence, which has meant that GDP growth has been more like low 1%, 1 to 1.5% range, whereas the rest of the G7 is growing at more like 2.5% due to lack of confidence. So I think the one thing that they could do is create certainty around Brexit. I think Theresa May needs to get the axe out. Sounds like this weekend she took some tough decisions. A couple of them have gone. I think that's great. Fine, she needed some Brexiteers on the cabinet. I think she's still got one or two. But they need to toe the line. They need to behave. They need to operate with collective responsibility. If they're not doing that, she needs to sack them, and she needs to, have a very, very clear vision of what the negotiation is going to be with the EU. I think, I voted to remain largely for economic reasons. Okay, fine. Immigration. Lots of people weren't happy about immigration. Maybe the country couldn't sort of take all the numbers of people coming in. I think that has reduced a lot in the last few years. We're still part of the EU. We still have free movement of people, but the government seem to have been able to curb the amount of people coming to this country outside of the EU and within the EU. They clearly have got mechanisms to reduce and control it. Sounds like they've been going too far in some cases, i.e. Windrush. I think if the government had sort of taken the opportunity earlier to find ways of reducing certainly illegal and some legal immigration, i.e. take people in based on a points-based system, take the people that you want who help the country economically rather than the ones that you have to support. I think they did have the opportunity to do that. I don't think they took it. I think the population got more and more upset with that and various other things, and this is the result. I suspect if you took the final deal back to a vote, that there would be, a good number of people in this country that may not, want to do it if it was a severely tough Brexit and it was going to hurt them in the pocket, which is what the result of this is going to be. We reduced trade linkages, which have, been built up over hundreds and hundreds of years. These guys are on our doorstep. That's why we trade with them largely. America's great, Australia's great. The empire was great when we had it. Australia and America are miles away. It costs money to move goods to those areas. We don't have an empire anymore. So we're operating in a completely different world from when we weren't in the EU. So we need to have, these 500 million consumers that we can trade with within the European Union. I think they need to protect that, create certainty around it. If that means being in the customs union and continuing being in the common market, fine. Clearly, we're going to lose a load of influence in there now. Everyone was told that before the vote took place. I'd love to see what people actually think about it now. I know a straw poll upstairs of our staff who voted for Brexit, a lot of young ones. They're now all saying, "Oh, we didn't realise what we were doing. We didn't necessarily understand it." It doesn't seem like a good idea now, and we don't want to do it. Obviously, there are lots of people that did understand it, but I think these are very complicated questions that even the politicians don't understand the effects, or what's going to happen, over the sort of medium to long term in terms of the decisions that are made now, because we're testing something which it's something new, and you haven't really got a model to base this on. So it's quite reckless. We're having a sort of live test of coming out of a major trade bloc, which provides employment and economic activity and money in people's pockets. And why would you take the risk? What are you going to get? All this supposed control over whatever. I just suspect we won't have the control anyway. These decisions are made for us anyway, and you're sort of taking very, very big risks for a very unknown and probably inferior result, as is becoming clear.